The morning sun cast long shadows across the small human colony on Kepler 442b. Children played in the dusty streets between metal buildings, while their parents worked in the mines or tended the growing fields. This place was called New Sol, and it was home to 3,000 humans who had traveled far from Earth to build a new life. Park Tae-ho stood on his porch, watching the daily routine with tired eyes. As colony leader, he carried the weight of everyone's safety. The former Earth soldier had traded his uniform for work clothes, but his sharp gaze still swept the horizon like a man expecting trouble. Today felt different somehow. The air was too quiet. At the colony's edge, 8-year-old Kim So-min knelt in her mother's flower garden. Her small hands carefully picked the brightest blooms, red roses, yellow daisies, and purple wildflowers that somehow grew in this alien soil. So-min's dark eyes sparkled with curiosity about everything around her. She asked endless questions about the stars, the strange insects, and why the sky here was more green than blue. Her father, Kim Dong-woo, called from the engineering station. "So-min, stay close to the buildings today." "Why, Papa?" she asked, not looking up from the flowers. "Just because," he said, but his voice carried worry. So-min's mother, Dr. Kim No-ri, emerged from the medical center. She wiped her hands on a clean cloth and smiled at her daughter. "What beautiful flowers, sweetheart." "I'm making a bouquet for visitors," So-min announced proudly. Nari frowned. "What visitors?" Before So-min could answer, the ground began to shake. A deep rumbling sound filled the air, growing louder by the second. Everyone in the colony stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. Dark shapes appeared through the green atmosphere, massive ships descending like metal mountains. Park Tae-ho grabbed his emergency communicator. "All families to the community center now." But it was too late. The alien ships landed with earth-shaking thuds around the colony's perimeter. Ramps lowered with mechanical hisses, and strange beings emerged. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but were covered in green and brown scales. Their eyes were cold and yellow, and they carried weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. The leader of these creatures was taller than the rest. Admiral Vextar of the Scolari race had conquered dozens of worlds for the Galactic Empire. His scaled face showed no emotion as he surveyed the human settlement. To him, these creatures looked soft and weak. Primitive mammals. He spoke in his own language to his soldiers. "They have spread beyond their assigned sector without permission. The Empire's law is clear." Park Tae-ho walked forward with his hands raised, showing he meant no harm. Behind him, families huddled together near their homes. Parents pulled children close. "Welcome to our colony," Tae-ho said in the common galactic language he had learned from trading ships. "We come in peace." Vextar studied the human leader with disgust. These mammals had the audacity to establish colonies in Empire space without asking permission. They bred like insects and spread across planets that belonged to superior species. "You are trespassing," Vextar declared. "This system belongs to the Galactic Empire. Your species was given specific boundaries. You have violated them." "We didn't know," Tae-ho said carefully. "We can discuss this. Find a solution that works for everyone." There is only one solution for lawbreakers. While the adults talked, So-min watched the scaled visitors with wonder instead of fear. She had never seen aliens before, only heard stories. They looked sad to her, like they needed something to make them happy. She clutched her bouquet of flowers tighter. The little girl stepped out from behind her mother, ignoring Nari's sharp whisper to stay back. So-min walked toward the alien soldiers with innocent courage, her small feet making no sound on the ground. "Hello?" she said in her sweet voice, holding up the colorful flowers. "These are for you, to welcome you to our home." Several Scolari soldiers stepped backward. They had never seen such a small creature approach them without fear. The child's dark eyes held no malice, only genuine kindness. For a moment, even their cold hearts felt something strange, a memory of innocence they had forgotten long ago. But Vextar saw only potential danger. In his military mind, any movement toward his troops was a threat. He had not conquered worlds by showing mercy to enemies, no matter how small. "Admiral, one of his officers said quietly. It is just a child offering flowers. It is a distraction, tactic, Vextar replied coldly. These mammals are more cunning than they appear. So Min continued walking forward, unaware of the danger. She smiled at the nearest soldier, a younger Scolari who found himself strangely moved by her fearless approach. I picked them just for you, she said, extending the bouquet. Do you like flowers where you come from? The young soldier started to lower his weapon. Perhaps these humans were not the dangerous enemies they had been told about. This small one seemed to radiate something he had never encountered in all his battles. Pure goodness. But Vextar had seen enough. He raised his own weapon, a sleek energy rifle that could vaporize targets instantly. The other humans saw the movement and screamed warnings, but So Min was too close to the aliens, too far from safety. No! Kim Dongwoo shouted, running toward his daughter. So Min, run! Nari cried out. But the little girl just stood there, still holding her flowers, confused by all the shouting. She looked at Vextar with questioning eyes. I just wanted to give you flowers, she said softly. Vextar pulled the trigger. The energy beam struck So Min in the chest. For one terrible moment she stood frozen, still holding the bouquet. Then her small body collapsed to the ground, the flowers scattering around her like colorful tears. The silence that followed was complete. No one moved. No one breathed. The universe itself seemed to pause in horror at what had just happened. Kim, Dongwoo reached his daughter first, falling to his knees beside her still form. Nari's scream echoed across the colony, a sound of pure anguish that would haunt everyone who heard it. Other parents pulled their children closer, unable to comprehend the senseless cruelty they had witnessed. Park Tae-ho stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what his eyes had seen. An 8-year-old girl murdered for offering flowers to strangers. Within hours, the news reached Earth through quantum communication channels. The message was simple but devastating. Child killed by aliens during first contact. Kim So-min, age 8, murdered while offering flowers as welcome gift. Earth's response came exactly 24 hours later. Every transmission stopped. Every broadcast went silent. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. Then a single message transmitted to every known alien world. You killed a child. We are coming. The massive assembly hall on Earth had never been so quiet. Representatives from every nation, every colony, every space station sat in complete silence. The holographic image of little So-min floated above them, her bright smile frozen in time, her small hands holding colorful flowers. President Lee Jae-sung stood at the podium, his usually calm face showing raw anger. Behind him, the flag of United Earth hung at half-mast. He had been a peaceful leader, always choosing diplomacy over warfare. But today, something fundamental had changed in humanity's leader. They killed a child, he said, his voice carrying, across the silent hall. An 8-year-old girl who offered them flowers. They murdered her for showing kindness. The representatives remained motionless, but their eyes burned with shared fury. News of So-min's death had spread across human space in hours. Every colony, every ship, every mining station had received the message. The reaction was immediate and unprecedented. Humanity's scattered settlements had unified under one single purpose. General Choi Min-ho stepped forward from the military section. The tall man had spent his career planning for possible alien contact, but never for this. His weathered face showed the strain of sleepless nights spent preparing for what must come next. Mr. President, he said formally, the military stands ready. Lee nodded slowly. Tell me what we have, General. Choi activated a holographic display that filled the air above the assembly. It showed human settlements across dozens of star systems, connected by shipping lanes and communication networks. But as the image shifted, something remarkable became visible. For 50 years we have been preparing, Choi explained. Every colony, every trading post, every mining operation was built with dual purposes. Our farmers are also soldiers. Our merchants are also intelligence agents. Our cargo ships carry more than supplies. The display zoomed in on various human settlements. Innocent-looking agricultural colonies revealed hidden missile batteries. Simple cargo vessels shed their outer hulls to show military-grade weapons, systems. Mining stations transformed into fortress complexes. We learned from Earth's history, Choi continued. Never again would humanity be caught defenseless. While we hoped for peace, we prepared for war. Dr. Yoon Hye-jin rose from the scientific advisory section. The brilliant weapons researcher had spent decades developing defensive technologies, always hoping they would never be needed. Now her life's work would serve a darker purpose. Project Somin begins immediately, she announced, her voice steady, despite her grief. We will develop weapons specifically designed to counter Galactic Empire technology. Their energy shields, their hull materials, their propulsion systems. We will find weaknesses in everything they possess. Agent Kang Ji-woo spoke from the intelligence services. The quiet man rarely appeared in public, preferring to work in shadows. Today, his network of spies and informants across Empire space would finally reveal their true purpose. Our people are already in place, he reported. For decades, human diplomats, traders, and scholars have been mapping Empire military installations, studying their tactics, learning their languages. They believe we are simple farmers and merchants. They have no idea what we really are. President Lee looked across the assembly, seeing the same determination in every face. Democrats and Republicans, rich and poor, scientists and soldiers, all united by the image of a murdered child. The Empire will learn, he said quietly, that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our weapons. It was our capacity to love, and our terrible response when that love is violated. The first strike came within days. Captain Lim Soo-jin commanded what appeared to be a simple cargo freighter heading toward Alpha Centauri. The Empire garrison there monitored her approach with bored indifference. Another human merchant seeking trade opportunities. But as Soo-jin's ship entered the system, it began to change. External cargo pods detached to reveal sleek weapon arrays. The hull shifted and reconfigured, exposing military-grade armor and shield generators. In moments, the harmless freighter had become a warship. Empire Station, this is Captain Lim Soo-jin of the Earth Defense Force, she transmitted. You are harboring war criminals responsible for the murder of an innocent child. Surrender immediately. The Empire commander laughed at the transmission. One small human ship against his fully armed battle station? The mammals had lost their minds with grief. He stopped laughing when Soo-jin's first shot punched through his shields like they weren't there. The kinetic projectile, accelerated to nearly light speed, tore through the station's hull and detonated its reactor core. The massive military base simply vanished in a flash of nuclear fire. Similar attacks occurred simultaneously across Empire space. Human ships that had been ignored for years suddenly revealed their true nature. Supply convoys disappeared. Communication relays went silent. Border outposts found themselves under siege by enemies they had never seen coming. On the Empire, capital world, Emperor Thaxaron received increasingly desperate reports from his military commanders. General Zaklos, his most trusted officer, stood before the throne with confusion written across his scarred features. My lord, Zaklos reported, we are under attack by the humans, but our intelligence said they were a peaceful species with no military capabilities. How many ships are they using? The Emperor asked. We don't know, my lord. They appear from nowhere, strike and vanish before we can respond. Our casualties are mounting rapidly. Thaxaron studied the tactical displays with growing alarm. Red markers showed attacked installations across his empire. The pattern made no sense. Humans were hitting both major military bases and minor supply stations with equal precision. What do they want? He demanded. Territory, resources, tribute? Zaklos hesitated before answering. My lord, they broadcast the same message at every attack. They say we killed a child named Kim So-min. They want revenge. The Emperor's forearms gestured dismissively. Revenge for one death? Deploy the third battle fleet. Show these mammals the price of challenging the Empire. But the third battle fleet never reached human space. Admiral Park Sung-woo, brother of the colony leader who had watched So-min die, intercepted them at the Rigel system. His ghost ships appeared without warning, their stealth technology rendering them invisible until they opened fire. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Empire's most powerful fleet was nothing but debris and radiation. Park Sung-woo transmitted a single message to the surviving Empire ships as they fled. Remember her name, Kim So-min. 8 years old, she offered you flowers. Across human space, the same message echoed from every ship, every station, every colony. So-min's name became a battle cry, a reminder of innocence lost and justice demanded. Her smiling image appeared on the sides of human warships painted next to weapons that bore her name. Dr. Shin A-young, humanity's leading expert in alien psychology, worked frantically to understand their enemies' minds. The Empire species had ruled through fear and superior technology for thousands of years. They expected others to submit or be destroyed. They had never faced an enemy motivated by love and loss. "They don't understand us," she reported to the War Council. "To them, war is about conquest and resources. They can't comprehend fighting for the memory of one child. That incomprehension is our advantage." Commander An Bo-ra led the first deep strike into Empire territory. Her ghost ships penetrated the heavily defended core worlds, appearing in the heart of enemy space like vengeful spirits. They didn't target military bases or strategic resources. Instead, they struck at the Empire's symbols of power, monuments, palaces, and government buildings, but they never killed civilians. Even in their rage, humans maintained their moral standards. The Empire's innocent populations were evacuated, before strikes receiving the same mercy that So-min had been denied. The message was clear: we are not like you. We do not murder the defenseless, but we will have justice. As news of human victories spread, other oppressed species began to whisper. The mighty Empire, ruler of the galaxy for 10 millennia, was being systematically dismantled by creatures they had dismissed as primitive. If humans could stand against the Empire, perhaps freedom was possible for everyone. On Earth, President Lee received daily reports of their military successes, but he found no joy in the victories. In his private office, he kept a picture of So-min on his desk, the same smiling image broadcast across human space. Every decision, every battle plan, every strategic move was made in her memory. "We are winning," General Choi reported during their evening briefing. Empire forces are retreating from 17 systems. Their communication networks are in chaos. "Good," Lee replied quietly. "But remember, this isn't about conquest. It's about ensuring no other parent ever has to watch their child die for showing kindness." The president stood and looked out at the night sky, where stars twinkled with deceptive peace. Somewhere among those lights, an empire was learning that humanity's capacity for both love and vengeance knew no bounds. Admiral Park Sung-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Empire stronghold at Vega 7 was burning. Another victory for humanity, another step closer to justice for So-min. But this wasn't random destruction. Every target was carefully chosen to break the Empire's will to fight. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "the Empire commander is requesting terms for surrender." "Denied," Park replied without hesitation. Broadcast the standard message. Across all frequencies, So-min's story played again. Her picture, her innocent smile, her final words about giving flowers to strangers. Then came the human response. "For every human killed, 10 Empire worlds will burn. This is the price of murdering children." The So-min Doctrine had become humanity's official military policy. But it wasn't about random revenge. It was psychological warfare designed to break an Empire's spirit. Each attack targeted something the Empire valued: their pride, their sense of invincibility, their belief in superior strength. Commander An Bo-ra adjusted the stealth settings on her ghost ship as they approached the Scolari border. Her fleet of invisible vessels had become the Empire's worst nightmare, ships that appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before retaliation was possible. Target acquired, her weapons officer announced. Empire Supply Depot at Kepler Station. Minimal civilian population. Remember the rules, Bora said firmly. Military targets only. Give them time to evacuate non-combatants. We are not them. The ghost ships materialized around the station like demons from human mythology. But instead of immediately attacking, they broadcast evacuation warnings. 20 minutes for civilians to reach escape pods. Even in war, humanity maintained its moral standards. The station commander couldn't believe what he was seeing. Enemy ships offering mercy to his people? In all his years serving the Empire, he had never witnessed such behavior. The Empire's way was total destruction, leaving no survivors to tell tales of defeat. After the evacuation was complete, Bora's ships opened fire. The military depot exploded in brilliant flashes, its weapons and supplies destroyed. But every civilian had escaped safely, carrying stories of human honor even in battle. On the Empire capital world, General Zaklos presented increasingly desperate reports to Emperor Thaxron. The tactical display showed red markers spreading across their territory like an infection, world after world falling to human attacks but in patterns that made no sense. My lord, Zaklos said carefully, the humans are not fighting like any enemy we have faced. They target our military assets but spare civilians. They could have destroyed entire planets by now, but they choose surgical strikes instead. What do they want? Thaxron demanded, his forearms gesturing in frustration. If not conquest, then what is their goal? They want us to remember a child's name, my lord. Kim So-min. They say we killed her for offering flowers. Every attack is personal to them. The Emperor's scaled face showed confusion. In his species' culture, individual deaths meant nothing unless they were of important leaders. The idea of fighting a war over one child's murder was incomprehensible. Fleet Admiral Jang Hyun-woo approached Scolari Prime with the largest human force yet assembled. 300 ships, all bearing So-min's image on their hulls. The planet's defense fleet moved to intercept, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They were wrong. Human weapons had evolved rapidly during months of constant warfare. Dr. Yoon Hyejin's research teams worked around the clock, analyzing captured Empire technology and developing counters for every defense system. Energy shields designed to stop plasma weapons proved useless against kinetic projectiles moving at light speed. Hull materials that resisted heat vaporized under focused gravity wells. The battle for Scolari Prime lasted 3 days. Human ships danced through the Empire formations like schools of fish, their movements unpredictable and coordinated. When Empire vessels tried to retreat, they found their escape routes blocked by ghost ships that had been waiting in ambush. Surrender now, Jang broadcast to the remaining Empire forces, and your crews will be treated with the mercy you denied a child. But the Scolari were proud warriors who had never known defeat. Their commander chose death over dishonor, ordering his remaining ships to fight to the last. They died bravely, but they died pointlessly, their sacrifice meaning nothing in the face of human determination. As Scolari Prime's orbital defenses crumbled, Yang established a blockade around the planet. No ships in or out, no supplies, no communications. The message was clear: your actions have consequences. Dr. Shin A-young studied recordings of Empire prisoners with scientific fascination. The psychological profiles revealed species that had ruled through fear for so long that they couldn't comprehend an enemy motivated by love and justice. They're breaking, she reported to the War Council on Earth. Empire soldiers are suffering from what we might call moral shock. They've spent their lives believing might makes right. Now they face humans who are both more powerful and more moral than they are. Good, President Lee replied grimly. Terror is what they understand. Let them feel what So-min felt in her final moments. On the fortress world of Korvax, Colonel Lee Dong-hyuk led the ground assault that would become legendary in human military history. The Empire had boasted that Korvax was impregnable, protected by energy barriers and automated defense systems that no army could breach. They had never faced human engineers. Dong Hyuk's forces didn't assault the fortress directly. Instead, they dug. Human mining equipment repurposed for warfare burrowed beneath Korvax's defenses. Tunnels filled with gravity bombs that collapsed the mountain fortress from within. When the defenders emerged from their ruined stronghold, they found human soldiers waiting with weapons but also medical supplies. Treat the wounded, Dong Hyuk ordered his troops. They are no longer threats. Where the great fortress had stood, humans planted a memorial garden. Flowers like the ones So-min had picked grew in alien soil, tended by former Empire prisoners, who worked alongside their captors. The sight of armed enemies gardening together confused Empire observers, who couldn't understand showing mercy to the defeated. But perhaps the most devastating human weapon wasn't military at all. On captured Empire worlds, humans established hospitals, schools, and cultural centers. They shared their technology freely, taught alien children to read, and provided medical care to species that had spent centuries as Empire slaves. Chancellor Mordak of the Empire's ruling council studied reports from the front lines with growing alarm. "My lord," he told Emperor Thaxron, "the humans are not merely defeating our forces, they are converting them." Converting them to what? To their way of thinking, my lord. Empire soldiers who surrender report being treated better by human captors than by their own commanders. Some are refusing to fight when released, claiming humans have shown them a better way. The Emperor's rage shook the palace. Deploy the 3rd Legion. Show these mammals what happens when they challenge the Empire. But the 3rd Legion never reached the battle zones. Captain No Tae-young's ghost fleet intercepted them at the Antares system, appearing from hyperspace like vengeful spirits. The battle was over in minutes, the Empire's elite forces scattered to the void. Among the captured officers was Admiral Vextar himself, the Scolari commander who had murdered So-min. The alien who had killed a child for offering flowers now found himself in human custody, expecting torture or execution. Instead, he was taken to a small garden on the planet New Eden, where human colonists grew vegetables and flowers. A simple memorial stood at the garden center, a statue of a young girl holding a bouquet, her face carved with infinite sadness. "This is Kim So-min," Captain No explained to the confused prisoner. "The child you murdered. You will tend her garden until you understand what you destroyed." Vextar protested that he was a warrior, not a farmer. But his protests fell on deaf ears. Day after day, he was forced to water flowers, pull weeds, and maintain the memorial to his victim. Other human prisoners worked alongside him, former Empire soldiers learning to nurture life instead of destroying it. Slowly, something began to change in Vextar's cold heart. The daily routine of caring for growing things, of seeing beauty emerge. From his efforts, awakened feelings he had never experienced. When he looked at So-min's statue, he began to see not an enemy to be eliminated, but a child who had deserved to live. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vextar experienced something his species had no word for: guilt. The psychological warfare was working. Across Empire space, military commanders reported soldiers refusing orders, populations welcoming human occupiers, and entire star systems surrendering without a fight. The mighty Galactic Empire was crumbling not through military defeat alone, but through moral collapse. On Earth, President Lee watched the tactical displays with mixed emotions. Victory was within reach, but at a cost he hadn't anticipated. Humanity was winning the war, but in doing so, they were becoming something new, a species capable of terrible vengeance, but also infinite mercy. "So-min," he whispered to her picture, on his desk. "I hope we're making you proud." Outside his window, the stars burned with the light of distant battles, each. The Imperial Council chamber on Thax Prime had never witnessed such chaos. Emperor Thaxaron's 4 arms trembled with rage as he read the latest battle reports. 17 core worlds lost, the 3rd and 5th battle fleets destroyed, his most trusted commanders either dead or captured by the humans. "How is this possible?" he roared at his assembled advisors. "They are mammals. Primitive creatures who should be serving us, not defeating us. Chancellor Mordak stepped forward carefully. The elderly diplomat had served 3 emperors, but had never seen the Empire face such a complete disaster. My lord, our intelligence about humans was incomplete. They are not the simple farmers and merchants we believe them to be. Then what are they? They are warriors, my lord. Perhaps the most dangerous warriors the galaxy has ever produced. They fight not for territory or resources, but for something our species has never understood: love of their young. Strategic. Analyst Seo Jinna stood before the Earth Assembly, explaining humanity's unprecedented success to the gathered leaders. The brilliant tactical expert had spent months studying alien warfare patterns, finding weaknesses that had been invisible for millennia. We are winning, she reported, because we fight for reasons the Empire cannot comprehend. Their soldiers fight for duty, conquest, and fear of punishment. Our soldiers fight for So-Min's memory. That gives us an advantage no military technology can match. President Lee nodded grimly. What is our current position? 57 Empire worlds have fallen to our forces. Their military is in complete disarray. However, she paused, consulting her datapad. We have intercepted communications suggesting they may resort to their ultimate weapons. A chill fell over the assembly. Everyone knew what that meant. Planet killers, weapons capable of destroying entire worlds from orbit. The Empire had used them before to erase species that resisted their rule. They would target Earth directly, Seo continued. Destroy our homeworld and hope that breaks our will to fight. General Choi Minho stood from his chair, his weathered face showing deadly calm. Let them come. Earth is not defenseless. Far from Earth, Captain No Tae-young received news that would change everything. His prisoner, former Admiral Vexitar, had requested a meeting. The Scolari commander who had murdered So-Min wanted to speak. No found the alien in the memorial garden, kneeling beside So-Min's statue. Vexitar's scaled hands were dirty from gardening work, and his once proud military bearing had been replaced by something No had never seen in an Empire soldier: humility. I understand now, Vexitar said quietly, not looking up from the flowers he was tending. What I destroyed that day. She was not a threat or a tactical target. She was innocent. Yes, No replied simply. My species has no word for what I feel. This weight in my chest. This pain that grows stronger each day as I tend her memory. We call it guilt. It means you finally understand the difference between right and wrong. Vexitar's yellow eyes filled with moisture. Tears, another emotion his cold species rarely experienced. I cannot undo what I did, but I can prevent something worse. The Emperor has authorized use of the Death Stars, planet killers that will target Earth itself. No felt ice form in his stomach. How many? 12 ships. Enough firepower to crack your world like an egg. They launch in 72 hours. The information reached Earth within hours through quantum communication. President Lee called an emergency session of the Defense Council, but there was no panic in the room. Humanity had been preparing for this possibility since the war began. Defense Coordinator Ryu Sang-min activated the holographic displays surrounding Earth. What appeared was not a simple planet protected by orbital stations, but something far more impressive. For 50 years, he explained to the assembled leaders, we have been preparing for this moment. Earth is not just our homeworld. It is the ultimate fortress. The displays revealed the truth. Hidden beneath Earth's oceans were massive weapon platforms, orbital defense stations that had been disguised as research facilities powered up, revealing military-grade shields and armaments. The planet's entire moon had been hollowed out and converted into a weapons platform of unimaginable power. Let them come, Ryu said with quiet confidence. They will learn what it means to threaten humanity's children. War Master Grixnar commanded, the Empire's planet-killer fleet as it approached the Sol system. The massive vessels were designed for one purpose: complete planetary destruction. Each ship carried enough firepower to shatter worlds, and 12 of them should be more than enough to end human resistance forever. Target acquired, his weapons officer announced. The third planet, Earth, population approximately 8 billion mammals. Excellent. Begin the bombardment. Show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Empire. But as the Death Stars powered their weapons, something impossible happened. Earth began to fight back. Hidden weapons platforms rose from the ocean depths, their massive cannons targeting the Empire fleet with precision that should have been impossible. The planet's moon shifted position, revealing itself to be an artificial construct bristling with weapons. Orbital stations that had pretended to be civilian research facilities dropped their disguises and engaged with military-grade firepower. "What is this?" Grixnar demanded as his fleet came under devastating attack. Intelligence said they were primitives with no significant military capabilities. His weapons officer's voice shook with fear. "Sir, their entire planet is armed. It's not a world, it's a weapon. The battle for Earth lasted 18 hours. When it ended, 11 of the 12 Death Stars were nothing but expanding clouds of debris. The last ship, commanded by Grixnar himself, limped away with its crew traumatized by what they had witnessed. But the humans had done something unprecedented. Instead of destroying the fleeing vessel, they captured it intact. Grixnar found himself prisoner aboard his own ship, now under human control. The planet killer's weapons were turned against the Empire that had built them. Ambassador Osubin arrived at the Empire capital under a flag of truce. The elderly diplomat had spent decades preparing for this moment, the final negotiation that would end the war. She carried with her humanity's terms for peace, written in blood and justified by the memory of a murdered child. Emperor Thaxaron received her in his throne room, surrounded by the splendor of 10,000 years of galactic conquest. But for the first time in his reign, the mighty ruler felt fear when facing a single human female. "Speak your terms, mammal," he commanded, trying to maintain dignity despite his desperate position. Osubin placed a simple photograph on the steps leading to his throne. It showed Somin smiling, holding her bouquet of flowers. "These are not terms," she said quietly. "This is justice. You would destroy our entire civilization for one child? You destroyed that child for no reason at all. Yes, we would burn your empire to ash for her memory, but we offer another choice." The terms were simple but absolute. Complete surrender of all Empire military forces, trials for war criminals responsible for genocide across the galaxy, reparations to species oppressed under Empire rule, and most importantly, constitutional guarantees that no child of any species would ever again face what So Min had endured. "And if I refuse?" Thaxaron asked. "Then you will learn why the rest of the galaxy calls us the species that tamed death itself. We will show you what happens when humanity's protective instincts are fully awakened." The Emperor looked at the photograph of the smiling child, then at the human ambassador who radiated quiet determination. In her eyes he saw something that chilled his reptilian blood, the absolute certainty that she meant every word. War Crimes Tribunal. Chief Judge Wu Jae-min prepared for the trials that would reshape galactic civilization. The evidence was overwhelming. Centuries of genocide, slavery, and oppression under Empire rule. But these trials would be different. They would be conducted with human standards of justice, offering the accused something the Empire had never provided its victims: fair hearings and due process. Vextar was among the first to testify. The former admiral who had murdered So Min stood before the tribunal with his head bowed in shame. His months tending her memorial garden had changed him completely. "I killed an innocent child," he said simply. "I destroyed something beautiful for no reason other than my own cruelty. I offer no excuse. I ask only that my punishment serve to prevent others from making the same mistake." Judge Wu studied the broken alien commander with careful eyes. Justice demanded punishment, but humanity's mercy suggested redemption might be possible even for those who had committed terrible crimes. On Earth, President Lee stood in his office reading the final casualty reports. The war was ending, and humanity had achieved total victory. But the cost had been high, not in lives, for human casualties had been surprisingly light, but in innocence lost. His people had learned they could be terrible in their vengeance when their children were threatened. That knowledge would change them forever. He looked at Somin's picture on his desk, the same image that had inspired a galaxy-spanning war. "We did it, little one," he whispered. "We made sure no other child will face what you faced. I hope that was worth the price we all paid." Outside his window, the first ships were returning from the front lines. The great hall on the Empire capital world had been transformed. Where once stood the throne of Emperor Thaxron, now sat a simple table where the terms of surrender were being signed. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, beings who had suffered under Empire rule for millennia and were now witnessing its final end. President Lee Jae-sung signed the documents with a pen made from metal, salvaged from Somin's memorial garden. The symbolism was intentional, justice growing from the ashes of tragedy, hope planted in the soil of sacrifice. Emperor Thaxron's signature was shaky as he signed away 10,000 years of galactic dominance. The proud ruler who had commanded millions of ships and trillions of subjects now faced the reality of defeat at the hands of creatures he had considered primitive mammals. "It is done," announced Secretary General Quan Hee-jae of the newly formed Galactic Federation. "The Empire has fallen. A new age begins today." But the real ceremony was happening far from the halls of power, on the small world where everything had started. New Sol Colony had been rebuilt, and at its heart stood the most beautiful memorial garden in human space. Flowers from a dozen worlds grew in perfect harmony, their colors creating a living rainbow that could be seen from orbit. At the garden's center stood a statue that had become famous across the galaxy. Somin was carved in white marble, her 8-year-old face showing, the innocent smile that had touched even alien hearts. Her marble hands held a bouquet of flowers, forever offering kindness to a universe that had learned to protect such gestures. Kim Dong-woo and Kim Na-ri stood before their daughter's memorial, no longer the grieving parents who had watched her die. The war had changed them, as it had changed all of humanity, but their love for Somin had grown into something larger. A foundation that would ensure no child anywhere would face what their daughter had endured. "The Somin Foundation is operational on 47 worlds," Nari reported to the gathered crowd. "We have schools, hospitals, and protection centers for children of all species. Every facility bears her name and her promise. That childhood should be a time of wonder, not fear." Park Tae-ho, the former colony leader who had tried to protect his people, now served as the memorial's guardian. The old soldier had found peace in tending the garden where his neighbor's child was remembered. Around him, alien visitors from across the galaxy came to pay their respects to the little girl whose death had changed everything. A group of young Scalari approached the memorial cautiously. Their species had been the aggressors in the war, the ones who had killed Somin, and they carried that shame heavily. But the garden welcomed all visitors, and human guides helped them understand what they were seeing. "She was just 8 years old," the guide explained gently to the Scalari children. "She wanted to give flowers to strangers because she believed the universe was full of friends she hadn't met yet." One young Scalari, barely older than Somin had been, placed a small flower at the base of the statue. His scaled hands shook as he whispered, "I'm sorry. We're sorry." The human guide knelt beside the child, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "She would have forgiven you. That's the kind of person she was. Now we have to make sure we build the kind of galaxy she would have wanted to grow up in." War Crimes Tribunal Chief Judge Woo Jae-min announced the verdicts that would reshape galactic law. Emperor Thaxron and his highest commanders faced life imprisonment for crimes against sentient beings. But the tribunals also offered something revolutionary: rehabilitation programs designed to teach former Empire leaders about the value of life they had never learned. Vextar received a sentence that surprised many observers. Instead of execution or imprisonment, he was assigned to spend the rest of his life serving children across the galaxy. The former admiral who had murdered a child would dedicate his remaining years to protecting children. "I cannot give Somin back her life," he said during his sentencing, "but I can use my remaining years to ensure other children live in safety." It is not enough, but it is all I can offer. Judge Wu nodded solemnly. Justice is not always about punishment. Sometimes it is about transformation. You will spend your life proving that even those who have committed terrible acts can choose to become better. Reconstruction Administrator Moon In-ho oversaw the massive project of rebuilding galactic civilization. Former empire worlds needed new governments. Freed slave species required assistance returning home, and thousands of worlds scarred by centuries of oppression needed healing. But humanity's approach to reconstruction surprised many observers. Instead of installing human governors or claiming conquered territory, they established democratic councils with representatives from all local species. Former enemies were given seats at the table alongside their former victims. We didn't fight this war to become the new empire, Moon explained to a gathering of planetary governors. We fought it to ensure that no empire could ever again threaten the innocent. The galaxy belongs to all of us. On Earth, the victory parades had ended and the heroes had returned home. But the real work was just beginning. Dr. Yoon Hye-jin, whose weapons had won the war, now dedicated her research to peaceful purposes. The same technology that had destroyed empire fleets was being adapted to terraform worlds, cure diseases, and explore the farthest reaches of space. War made us strong, she said during a scientific conference, but peace will make us wise. We have the power to destroy worlds, but we choose to build them instead. General Choi Min-ho retired from military service to establish the Galactic Peace Corps, training former soldiers to become teachers, medics, and engineers. The same humans who had fought with deadly efficiency now worked with equal dedication to heal the wounds of war. Agent Kang Ji-woo's intelligence network was transformed into an early warning system, monitoring the galaxy for signs of oppression or genocide. Never again would innocent beings suffer while the rest of the universe looked away. The most powerful memorial to So-min wasn't built of stone or metal, but of changed lives. Across the galaxy, former Empire soldiers worked alongside their former enemies. Scolari warriors taught human children about their culture. Human engineers helped rebuild worlds their weapons had damaged. Admiral Park Sung-woo, the Ghost Fleet commander whose victories had broken Empire power, found himself in charge of the most important mission of all, teaching former enemies how to live in peace. His ships, once instruments of war, now carried teachers, doctors, and humanitarian supplies to worlds that had known only oppression. Commander An Bora's stealth technology was adapted for search and rescue operations. Her invisible ships now appeared not to destroy but to save lives, finding lost travelers and stranded colonies across the galaxy's dangerous frontiers. Captain No Tae-young established the first integrated military academy, where beings from dozens of species learned to serve together. The same tactical brilliance that had won battles now focused on preventing future conflicts through understanding and cooperation. On the anniversary of So-min's death, the entire galaxy observed a moment of silence. On every world and every language her story was told. Not as propaganda or political message, but as a reminder of what they were all fighting to protect, the innocence and wonder of childhood. President Lee, now an elder statesman respected, across the galaxy stood once again in So-min's memorial garden. The flowers had grown wild and beautiful, tended by volunteers from every species. Children played among the paths, their laughter echoing where once there had been only grief. "Look what grew from your sacrifice," he whispered to the marble statue. "A galaxy where children of all species can play together in safety, where kindness is strength and mercy is power." A small Scolari child approached the statue carrying a bouquet of flowers like the one So-min had offered so long ago. But instead of fear, the alien child showed only curiosity and wonder. A human child joined him, and together they placed their flowers at the memorial's base. "This is what she died for," Lee said softly. "This moment. These children who will grow up in a universe where offering flowers to strangers is an act of friendship, not a death sentence." The galaxy had learned its lesson in the hardest possible way. The Empire's fatal mistake, killing an innocent child who offered flowers, had taught the universe that some lines must never be crossed. The protection of innocence was worth any sacrifice, any price, any war. But the greatest victory was not military. It was the sight of children from former enemy species playing together in memorial gardens across the galaxy. Somin's legacy was not revenge or conquest, but the guarantee that every child, regardless of species or origin, had the right to grow up among friends instead of enemies. The war was over. The peace had begun. And in gardens across the galaxy, flowers grew in memory of a little girl whose kindness had changed the universe forever. Her name was Kim So-min. She was 8 years old. She offered flowers to strangers because she believed in the goodness of all beings. Her death had ended an empire, but her memory had birthed a better galaxy, and every child who played safely among the stars was her living memorial.